All right, I want to talk to you about something that honestly caught a lot of people off guard coming out of the NFL Combine. Because when reports start floating that the San Francisco 49ers are at least open to trading Renardo Green, that makes you stop for a second. It makes you lean forward and go, wait, what? According to reports from ESPN insiders at the Combine, the 49ers have had conversations, or at minimum signaled that they would listen to offers for Green. Now here's why that's surprising. He's only 2 years into his rookie contract. He's affordable, he's talented, and he's still developing. That's usually the exact type of player you don't shop. So this wouldn't be a cap-clearing move. It wouldn't be financial. If the 49ers move Renardo Green, it's about football. And possibly something deeper than just football. You remember that divisional playoff moment. Cameras caught him walking away on the sideline while Kyle Shanahan was clearly not thrilled. It was after that, second and long play where Cooper Kupp got behind him in zone. His drop wasn't deep enough. It looked like a mental error, not just a physical one. Now let's be real for a second. Every young corner gets beat. That's life in the NFL, especially in the playoffs. But coaches don't bench players for 3 snaps just because of 1 rep. That usually signals something else. Maybe it was something stressed during the week. Maybe it was a repeated coaching point. Maybe it was about attention to detail. And that's the key word here, detail. Teams don't give up on talented young players because they mess up. They give up on players when they don't believe the mistakes will get corrected, when they question the approach, when they question whether the player can evolve. That's a very different conversation. So let me ask you directly. If you're running this team, are you trading Renardo Green? Yes or no? Drop it in the comments right now. And also tell me this. Do you think that sideline moment was a big deal? Or are we overanalyzing something that happens all the time in football? Because here's where I land initially. Green is a press-man-style corner. Physical, competitive, young. Those are pieces you build with. And unless there's something happening behind the scenes we don't know about, it feels early to move on. But smoke doesn't come from nowhere. Reports like this don't just magically appear. If you're new here and you want real, honest 49ers breakdowns like this all off-season long, hit subscribe and be part of what we're building. We're pushing toward 2,000 subscribers, and I want you in early before this thing takes off. Now here's the bigger question. Even if the 49ers are open to moving him, does it actually make football sense to do it? That's where this gets really interesting. Now when you zoom out and really look at this roster, that's where the Renardo Green situation starts to feel even more complicated. Because if you're going to move a young, affordable ascending corner, you better have a clear plan behind it. And right now, I'm not sure that plan is obvious. Let's walk through the depth chart together. You've got Deommodore Lenoir, who's already established himself as a high-level starter and just got paid. You've got Renardo Green, still on his rookie deal. You've got Upton Stout in the mix. And Darrell Luter has worked his way into being a reliable outside option and depth piece. That's actually a pretty solid starting point at corner. And here's the reality about cornerback in today's NFL. It's one of the hardest positions to keep healthy. Attrition is brutal. You almost never get through a full season with the same starters. So depth isn't a luxury. It's survival. So why would you move one of your better young pieces? The only way it makes sense is if the 49ers believe they can upgrade significantly. Now, there's been reporting that they could look at someone like Rick Woolen in free agency. Big, long, athletic press. Corner. That would fit the profile. Josh Jobe has also been mentioned as another potential target. But here's the thing. Those players are not going to come cheap. Woolen could command somewhere in that $12 to $15 million per year range. Jobe might not be far behind. And that's where I struggle with this idea. You already have Lenoir making strong money. You already have Green on a controlled contract for 2 more seasons. Why would you allocate premium resources to that position when there are other areas of this roster that feel far less stable? Wide receiver depth is a question mark. The defensive line absolutely needs reinforcement. And not just one body, but multiple. You need at least 8 playable defensive linemen in rotation every week. Edge, defensive tackle, rotational pieces. That room needs attention. Offensive line? That's still very much in flux. So if I'm ranking needs right now, I'm not putting corner at the very top. I'm just not. Let me throw this to you. If you had to choose, are you upgrading corner in free agency, or are you investing in the trenches? Drop corner or trenches in the comments. I genuinely want to see where you land on that, because roster construction is about allocation. It's about deciding where your dollars and draft picks create the biggest competitive advantage. And unless the coaching staff has serious concerns about Renardo Green's long-term trajectory, this feels like robbing Peter to pay Paul. Now let's pause here for a second, because if you're still watching, you're part of the faithful that actually cares about this stuff. And we're building something here. If you want this channel to grow, if you want daily, smart, passionate 49ers content, hit that subscribe button. We're on the road to 2,000 subscribers, and I want you to help us get there. And if you really want to fuel what we're building, use the super thanks or the hype feature below this video. That's not a donation. That's you fueling the quest for the next Super Bowl trophy. That's better production, better coverage, more breakdowns for this community. We build this together. Now, back to the football. The other thing about combine rumors is this: not all smoke leads to fire. In fact, most of it doesn't. A lot of this information comes from teams talking to other teams. Front offices float names. They test the market. They see what kind of value might be out there. That doesn't mean a trade is imminent. Sometimes it just means they're doing due diligence. But here's what does matter. When your name is out there, it's because someone at least explored the possibility. And that tells me the 49ers are evaluating every lever they can pull this offseason. Which brings us to the bigger puzzle. Because this isn't just about one cornerback. This is about how the 49ers are allocating resources across the entire roster. And once you start looking at the offensive line situation, the quarterback market, and some of these contract dynamics, you begin to see why every dollar and every draft pick matters more than ever. Let's zoom out and look at that bigger picture. When you zoom out and look at the full offseason picture, this is where everything starts to connect. Because the 49ers aren't just deciding on one cornerback. They're balancing an entire roster that has some very real pressure points. Let's start up front on offense. Jake Brendel is still the center, and the coaching staff clearly trusts him. They put a lot on his plate in terms of protections and adjustments. He has 1 year left on his deal. I don't see the 49ers going out and signing a high-priced free agent to replace him immediately. That doesn't feel realistic. But could they draft someone to develop? That's possible. The learning curve at center is steep. It's one of the most mentally demanding positions on the field. If they draft a guy, it would likely be with an eye toward the future, not someone stepping in week 1. And then there's left guard. If the 49ers add a true day 1 starter on the offensive line, I think that's where it happens. That's the cleanest path to an immediate upgrade. The Trent Williams contract situation is also quietly looming in the background. When you're dealing with elite players and major cap numbers, flexibility matters. That's where every other move becomes connected. If you're thinking about allocating money to a free agent corner, that money has to come from somewhere. Now flip over to the quarterback landscape. There hasn't been much buzz around Mac Jones. That silence is interesting. Meanwhile, the league is playing musical chairs. Malik Willis could be one of the first dominoes to fall once negotiations open. And once those pieces start moving, everything accelerates. Why does that matter here? Because every front office has to decide where it wants stability and where it wants volatility. Quarterback rooms, offensive lines, edge rotations, those are positions that can derail a season fast if mismanaged. So let me ask you this. If you could fix one position on this roster right now, and only one, what would it be? Edge, offensive line, wide receiver depth, corner? Drop it in the comments. And here's another quick yes or no. Would you draft a center this year to prepare for life after Brendel? Because when I look at this roster, I see more urgent needs than corner. I see defensive line depth as critical. I see offensive line reinforcement as essential. I see wide receiver as thinner than people want to admit. That's why the Renardo Green rumor feels like it's part of a larger chessboard. Maybe the 49ers believe they can extract value in a trade and redirect that into a position they view as more unstable. Maybe they believe they can draft a corner in the middle rounds who can compete immediately. Or maybe this is simply them exploring options without serious intent. Front offices test the market all the time. They gauge value. They listen. It doesn't mean a move is coming. But if it is, it will be because they believe that dollar for dollar and snap for snap, they can get better elsewhere. So now the real question becomes, what would it actually take to justify moving Renardo Green? Let's bring this home. So let's land this plane the right way. If the 49ers were to actually move Renardo Green, it can't be for something minor. You're not trading a young starting caliber corner on a controlled contract for a late-round pick just to say you did it. That would make no sense. The return would have to be meaningful. A day 2 pick, or part of a package that brings back a proven contributor at a more pressing position. Because here's the truth. Green still has upside. He's physical. He competes. He fits the style this defense wants to play. And unless the coaching staff has real concerns about consistency or long-term development, this feels more exploratory than aggressive. And that's where I'm leaning. Combine season is notorious for conversations that don't always lead to action. Teams float names. Other teams call and ask questions. Information leaks from one building to another. And suddenly it becomes a headline. That doesn't automatically mean a deal is coming. If I had to put odds on it right now, I'd say Renardo Green is still on this roster when the season kicks off, but I wouldn't say it's impossible either, not with how calculated this front office tends to operate. So I'll ask you one final time. Are you keeping Green or trading him? Keep or trade? Pick a side in the comments. And while you're down there, give me one bold prediction for this offseason. Big signing. Surprise cut. Draft shocker. Let's see who nails it before it happens. If you made it all the way through this breakdown, you're exactly why this channel is growing. We're building something for real 49ers fans who want substance, not noise. If you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. We're pushing toward 2,000 subscribers, and I want you to be part of this early wave before it explodes. The faithful deserve smart coverage, honest coverage, and energy that matches what this team means to us.